What's up, you guys? Matt Jablonski here with The Point of Change. Tonight, we have an amazing story of addiction and recovery for you guys. I'm going to wait for some people to get here, say some good evenings, get this feed shared out and ready to go, and then we'll get this show on the road. Let me put up my little ticker there so people know to like and share as you come on in. Welcome some people to the feed. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by the motivational speaker, the author of the Chris Farley Show, and the founder of the Chris Farley Foundation. Tom Farley Jr. is joining us tonight. He is, of course, the legendary comedian Chris Farley's older brother. He's going to be sharing his own story and how Chris's story of addiction and recovery affected his life and affected his family. Let's see, who do we got coming in here? Guys, throw up some comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Give me a recovery date. Give me some likes and loves. Give me a share out in any addiction groups you may be a part of or onto your own page if you wish. Hey, Allison Holden, Paula Hoey, good to see you here tonight. Vicky, thank you for being here. Josh is here. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Joni Faulkner, how are you? Good evening, everybody. Brian O'Brien, hey, how you doing? Paula got 4 months clean. Right on. Congratulations, Paula. Oh, that's the wrong one. There it is. Thank you, Paula, for sharing that with us. That's awesome. Allison Holden from Orlando, Florida. Thank you for being here, Allison. Thank you for being here. Dana Paul, love to see you here. Patrice is so excited. Right on. We got Vicky Schatzoff from Chesapeake, Virginia, 10/28/19. Thank you for being here, Vicky. Hannah, my dad and I are watching this. Right on, Hannah. Thank you for being here. Patrice says, you fixed your banner. Doesn't it look great? I actually nailed it up, guys. It's actually permanently on my wall now, so no more sliding down the wall while we're trying to make a video, right? Amanda Poe, hey guys, good evening. Margaret, thank you for being here. Everybody, thank you guys. Give me some likes and loves. Build up a good priority here on Facebook. Give me a share out in any addiction groups, and we shall get this show on the road. Thank you guys all for being here. If you've never been here before, my name is Matt Jablonski. Welcome to The Point of Change. This is being broadcast on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, like this video and subscribe to my page, and also come on over to Facebook. We got all kinds of more stuff over here. We got live videos every morning at 10 a.m. I'm live to talk about addiction, recovery, and just blogging. We got written posts, and we got memes that apparently are sometimes a little inappropriate. I'm sorry for the meme I made earlier, guys. And if anybody in the world can appreciate somebody who makes inappropriate jokes once in a while, it's my guest tonight. Every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, I bring a guest on, somebody from the recovery world, to share their story of addiction and recovery. And tonight, I am joined by the legendary comedian's brother, Tom Farley Jr. is going to be here, Chris Farley's brother. So thank you guys. Throw up some likes and loves, and let's welcome tonight's guest, Tom Farley.
How you doing, Tom? I'm doing great. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Thank you for coming by and sharing with us tonight, man.
Yeah. That was a great intro. It just made me laugh because you're talking about just, your memes and stuff like that. And one of the first things I thought when I got into recovery myself was like, oh man, at least I'm not going to say the dumb things anymore, or, be inappropriate, or, have no filters. Well, that's not exactly true because I still do that. So it wasn't an addiction issue with me. It was just the way I was brought up and the family I was brought up in. So you nailed that one.
Yeah, well, it's awesome to have you here. You're a fellow Wisconsinite. I'm right over here in Whitewater. You're right over there in Madison. So if it weren't for the COVID-19, I would have loved to do this in person. But so here we are. No,
fine. We're we got good space here.
Definitely.
I would have probably come over there.
So what was it like for you growing up in Madison, Wisconsin? I know there's quite a few Farley boys there. So.
Yeah. Wow. You really can't. You really can't describe it. I sometimes I open up my speaking gigs with everyone's got the, obnoxious little brother, or, the little brother that's always embarrassing you. And that's great. But for most people, that that kid's name is Ned. My little brother was Chris Farley, and yeah, the Chris you saw at on SNL, like age 30, same kid at age 12. He did not change. So yeah, I had to share a bedroom with him. So yeah, it was a little rough. And
Oh, I
then
can
of
imagine.
course I've got I have three brothers, Chris, and then my other brothers, Kevin and Johnny. They went into comedy too, and they're still out there doing comedy stuff. So I'm the only one that really kind of took life serious.
Well,
So
that's good. That's good.
yeah.
All right. So, are you the oldest?
Uh, yeah, yeah. I'm the oldest of the boys. We do have an older sister, which
Oh, okay.
sometimes we include in the fun, but no, I give her crap all the time because she had to deal with four brothers.
Oh, yeah. Four
But
younger brothers.
Barbara Ann,
Definitely got-
Barbara Ann's the oldest, and she keeps us or tries to keep us in line. So
Yeah, that's good. I imagine growing up, that had to be a handful right there, just having Chris Farley as a younger brother and trying to keep him under wraps.
yeah. But we were all that way, and my dad just was constantly stoking the fire, so it's really his fault. He would get us going, and it was just chaos. It was fun chaos. So
Definitely, definitely. Now, either you or Chris, was there any early addiction in your family at all when you guys were younger, or was that something that started later?
yeah. Well, I mean, first in high school, back then when we were in high school and stuff, the drinking age was 18 in Wisconsin. And again, I'll point out that we grew up in Wisconsin. So, there you go. That the environment that we grew up in and we grew up in a very Irish family. And, so throughout our histories, my parents' families, yeah, they were big drinkers. And again, but so we really didn't drink that much until we got to that 17, 18. But then that was it. That was our thing. And as it is for most people around Wisconsin, it's just, yeah.
It's kind of the lifestyle in this state. I heard you say in the video I watched where you were with the Wisconsin Voices, and you had said that you just didn't recognize addiction because in Wisconsin it's kind of the lifestyle.
It's very normative. Absolutely. You wouldn't pick it out. And yeah, when somebody does have an issue in your family or your loved ones, it bears out over many years because everyone has kind of got similar, levels of the same issue. So by the time it gets noticeable and gets really bad, as it was in Chris's case, it was bad. It was like, oh my gosh, this is worse than the rest of us, which means that it's pretty bad at that point.
Yeah. When your drinking buddies and your drugging buddies are telling you have a problem, that's when you know something's bad.
Seriously.
So when would you say that? So it started obviously before Chris's fame. Did you think his fame did it definitely put it into a spiral?
Yes and no. It's interesting. The drinking was always there, and the weed, and so it was all that little stuff that just kind of accumulated over time, and as his career became progressively more serious, he was really focused. He came really, he was really focused on it. But it's at some point, and I think when he got out to New York, and he got into harder stuff, and just to, we can go into more depth on that, but I just remember one time when we were, I worked in New York too when Chris got there, and I remember him when he first started getting sober and he got through treatment. He said to me, I can give up. I can give up the weed. I can give up the drinking. That's not an issue because I got the program and the recovery program is pretty solid in those areas. But man, he goes, he didn't take a lot of hard drugs like heroin, but he said I only took it a few times, and it was just those few times that it's like, he goes, Tommy, it's the devil because I can give up all those other things and never think about them again. But that's always on my mind. The H is like, it just, that's always like right there, just knocking at the door. And he said, that's when I noticed that there was a huge difference between the two. And so, that's, that really frightened him the most. That's where he really, that's,
So
if
once
you
you
read,
crossed the line into illicit drugs, that was when it kind of, I think that's most of our stories too.
Right. Very common. Yeah.
Yeah. So your own addiction, what was your drug of choice?
I was always, booze was always, that was always, that was it. I never really did any stuff. It just wasn't, but boy, I mean, I had no off switch, once I started, and I could, I could not drink for like days, but when I did, it was,
Everything you can drink.
Not, but it was just kind of, well, this last time I got into, recovery, and I had given up, I'd been sober for big stretches, 4 or 5 years throughout my adult life, without any sort of recovery program. And that's kind of my limit. Then, stress comes into my life, or, something, and then I'm right back into it, and I'm back in like a champ. So this last time I said, I gotta really work. This is crazy. And the reason I was doing it, because I had a whole summer, like three summers ago, where it was just, it was like all the time. And I was like, playing the games, playing the mind, I'm like, if I go to this party, if I leave right now, I could drive home, which at that point is, if you're already thinking that, it's already too late. It's already, But I was like, if I go right now, and I'm getting to that age where I'm really, the driving really started to like make me anxious and paranoid. So, but I would go home and be home at 9 o'clock after a party or something like that. And I would get safely home, and I'm like, well, it's only 9 o'clock, and I'd open the liquor cabinet, and I'd be up by myself alone, drinking till the bottle was done. And so, wake up every morning with a headache. I'm like, and people would go, yeah, but you left the party at 9. Why you like hungover? It's like, I didn't stop. I left the party at 9. I didn't stop.
Yeah. And that's
like,
all plays into addiction right there. All of that does. So there were moments during Chris's addiction where he found recovery here and there. In those moments, did you notice a healing within your family?
Yes. It's interesting. We're all kind of here and there. My mom was the first one to get into recovery. She stopped. She's been sober now for probably 25 years. If
that's awesome.
So she just said, and it was really more. So she was just kind of like, this is what I'm going to do. And we all kind of looked at my mom like, oh, that's impressive. We're always like, that was always there. It was always that visual of mom not drinking. So that was, but the rest of us took time here and there. And it really, I'll never forget. It was just watching the change in Chris, I tell a story a lot, many times, of when I was in New York, and Chris called me up, and he was on, his last year in SNL, and he said, Tommy, can you come to my 3rd year anniversary? I'm going to lead the AA meeting. And I said, sure, I'll come. And again, I was still drinking, and he gave me the address, and I'm walking down toward the address, and I'm like, not really enjoying the part of New York that I'm walking through. I realize I'm in Hell's Kitchen, and I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? Why did he just screw with me? And like, they gave me some weird address. But I got there and walked upstairs to this meeting with all. I mean, it looked like they brought in every bum from every all the streets in the neighborhood, and there's Chris in his blazer, in the front of the room, and got national television. But this is where he chose to meet, every week, if not daily. For 3 years with this group and this people. And this is the kind of guy Chris was. And he started the meeting, and then he said at one point, he said, I'm just like you guys. I woke up this morning, hoping and praying that I was going to stay clean and sober today. And here we are at the end of the day. And we did it. We all did it. And we get to have, cake and coffee afterwards. And so I'm in the back of the room going, who is this kid? I'm like, I've never seen my little brother in that light, like just kind of really serious about his sobriety was, and I'm like, okay, maybe he's onto something here. And then obviously at the same time, in the last 3 years he was being sober, his career was going through the roof. He was just being so successful, and he was just kind of, things were clicking for him.
Yeah.
And they weren't for me. And I'm like, something to think about. So I started, again, I stopped drinking, just kind of cold turkey, for like 3-4 years. And, I thought that was, okay, I'm cured. I'm done. I'm done. So,
yeah, don't we all have that?
Took me a couple tries. So,
but seeing his recovery definitely was an inspiration to you, huh?
Yep. And my brothers did the same thing when they were out in Hollywood. They, just saw, the benefits. And so, it's funny, like when my brothers, when we're all sober together, and we like kind of do it in different, at different times, like one starts and we're like, okay, maybe I should. And it gets us kind of the snowball effect. And so when we're all drinking, for a small amount of time, we had a lot of fun. And then when we're all not drinking, same thing. We're just happy. We're content. We're in a good place. It's those middle ground where like one of us is drinking, two of us aren't, or two of us got sober, and one. It's just that we're like, it's just
fluctuating.
That Farley dynamic is just gone. We either got to be, all in and really, really mess up our lives, or we just got to be all like working our program, and being sober. And when we're seeing that, all of us are now sober, and my mom's sober, and we're all
couldn't ask for more right there, right?
It's wonderful.
Yeah. This last Christmas was my first Christmas where we were all sitting around here at the house. Me and my brother were here, and we kind of realized this is the first Christmas in a long time that nobody's got any crap going on, that everything is peaceful. And it was just such a beautiful feeling.
It is. We've had those too. It's interesting. You remind me of one of the kind of haunting memories I have of this journey I had with Chris was a Christmas when Chris first started getting sober. And I just remembered all of us, Christmas Eve was always a big night for us. We'd open our presents because we're all grown up and everything. And so, and we'd start with the, the brandies and all that kind of stuff. And I remember this one Christmas, and we're all like getting going. And there's Chris with his coffee, because he'd just gotten sober, in the midst of all this kind of chaos. And I just look back at that and thinking like, I remember how we were, what our thought process was at the time. It's like this, Chris has the problem. We don't, this is his problem. So we all can still drink. And I thought, man, if we were just there for him, it's, and I tell that to people like, look, it affects families. It affects, companies. It's a community thing. It's not just, one person. The ripple effects, of this disease is, that go quite wide. So it would have been a wonderful thing for all of us to embrace Chris's sobriety and support it, and maybe at the same time learn something about us. Maybe just do something healthy for the rest of us too. But we didn't. Over time we did. But I just kind of had this vision in my head of that one Christmas, and I'm like, it was in this huge, loud, connected family. There was Chris, and it just never, emphasized to me how this addiction is an addiction of isolation and loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
Because here we are, we're all together, but one of us isn't. One of us
I could definitely see that.
So
Yeah. And that's, addiction is a family disease and recovery is the family cure or the family solution, you could say. I don't know if we could say cure, but
Right.
in those moments when you have all of your family in recovery and all of you working together like that, it's just, you're unstoppable,
Yeah, you
You're
really, well,
unstoppable.
that's a good word. Yeah.
So what was it like when Chris had his last downfall before he passed away? Did you know anything was happening? Was there any signs?
Well, I was, yeah, it's interesting. I was, living in Connecticut at the time. And I remember Chris came back to host Saturday Night Live. And I was at my office up in Greenwich, Connecticut, and it was Wednesday. And so I know the drill. He came in Monday. So he's been here. Um, he had been here like a couple days. And my wife called me and said, "Well, when are you coming home?" And I said, "Well, in a few minutes." But I said, "I know Chris is in town, but he hasn't called me." And there's that secretive kind of thing going on that people in addiction know very well. And she goes, "Well, why don't you just drive down to the city and find him?" So I said, "You know what? I'll do that." So I drove down to New York and found him at his hotel, and he was like really surprised, like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Well, I know you're in town. What do you mean? What am I doing here? You're coming into my town, buddy." And so we kind of went back up to SNL, and and he's just kind of just on edge, and I'm like, wow, this is I know this drill. It doesn't look good. I think he got really anxious about coming back to SNL and hosting, and I knew he was using and stuff, and I'm like, you know what, dude, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll come by. We'll have lunch. And I just left. And I came back the next day with another friend of ours that he from Wisconsin that worked out, a really good friend of Chris's. And so we went to his hotel and he called up to his room, and I said, "Hey, I'm here with Kevin." And Chris goes, "Oh," as soon as he heard Kevin's name, because he can't bullshit Kevin. He knew what was going to go down. And he said, "Yeah, give me a half hour." And so we said, "All right." So we went down, sat in the lobby, and then half hour later, we call up to his room, and the hotel operator calls, like, "Yeah, he's got Mr. Farley put a block on his phone. He doesn't want to talk to anybody." I'm like, "Okay."
Mm-hmm.
So I never saw him again. I saw him that weekend on SNL, and I don't know if you remember the skit he played where he played El Nino.
I do remember El Nino.
And he was like really a gruff voice, and everyone was, "Oh, look at him, he's talking with a gruff voice." No, he was just out of shit. He couldn't talk. He was, I knew he was, off the program, and he relapsed, and you could see it clear as day. He just wasn't, as funny, wasn't as sharp, and it was really sad to watch. I mean, everyone else, you look at it like, it's Chris Farley. He was so funny, but the people that knew him, particularly
Mm-hmm.
family, it was like, no, that's not Chris. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Even myself being an addict, I have seen clips of him where I'm like, "Eesh,"
yeah.
you kind of recognize it. You kind of recognize it. So that day, December 18th, 1997, what was that day like for you and your family getting that news?
Well, it's weird because, well, again, I was up in Connecticut, and I was in a friend of mine's office. We were talking about some project we wanted to do. And he had, we were doing some, we were talking some business kind of thing. And he had a TV in his office, and it was kind of muted. It was on CNN. And we're talking, and I'm looking over and I look at CNN, and I see pictures of, the Hancock building where Chris lived in Chicago. And we're like, "Oh, there's Hancock building." Then it shows clips of Tommy Boy and SNL, and there's Chris. I'm like, "Oh, it's my brother. Let's turn up. What's he done now?" And I turn up, and that's how I learned that Chris died. CNN. And this was before nobody had cell phones then. So, I mean,
Yeah.
no one could get me. And so my friend just said, leaves the office. He goes, there's the phone, do whatever you have to do. So I called home, and as soon as my dad answered the phone, I knew that, I knew it just was. So yeah, they've been trying to get me, they didn't know where I was, but but I said, I already know. I saw it on the news. And so it was really weird. It's that's bad enough, losing somebody, a family member, but to have I had like Access Hollywood calling me up and, can we come and talk to you? I'm like, no. I think I told them like 4 times, no, I'm not going to do an interview an hour after I'd learned my brother died. And still at 11 o'clock at night, knocked on the door and there's a full film crew. I'm like, wow, no, let me just kind of deal with this.
Yeah.
And so from that moment, for the next week, when I came back to Wisconsin, there was just, trying to, kind of deal with, that loss, as well as deal with all this kind of the publicity of it all, and, but we did it. We got through. We have a lot of good friends and their family, and we made it through. It's funny. I see people that have that similar tragedy happen in their lives, and they're just so willing to talk to people. And I'm looking at these families that can you tell us what happened about your son that just died? Like, you don't have to talk to the press. You don't have to do this. Like, we were used to it because we were used to the press, but for everyone else, they just feel like they got to talk. And I'm like, yeah, man, let people heal. So
Yeah.
it was surreal. It was very surreal.
I can imagine. That's like you said, that you've seen it on CNN, but then once you heard your dad's voice, you kind of knew it was real. I know myself, I've received news that way too, where I've seen on Facebook, that somebody passed away, and I'm like, oh, it's not, they got the wrong guy. Couldn't have been him. Somebody's wrong, and then you find out that it's the truth. And I think, not only your family and you, I think America and possibly even the world was affected. We all definitely shed a tear on that day. I know I'd be doing myself a disservice. I didn't tell you what of an inspiration your brother was to me and my comedy styles and what I'm doing today. Even, growing up in the 90s, I was born in 86. So Chris Farley was the man when I was a kid,
Yeah, you were right in that wheel. You were right in that perfect wheelhouse. Yeah.
Definitely. Black Sheep and Tommy Boy were kind of some of the movies that shaped my life, and I think that day was definitely a tear shed around the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. As I said, we've got our, as a family member, but when people like that, tell me that, I'm like, wow. I mean, that's it. It's just It's just a whole nother element of that situation that it's interesting to hear that. And I love hearing that. I mean, it's just we're still talking about it 20 years later.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing.
Right. And what an impact he left on not only on the world as far as comedy, but then of course, with you writing your book, The Chris Farley Show, which I read half of it in jail, which I hear is not a good thing. They say if you read half a book in jail, you'll come back to finish it. But I never went back to finish it. So
I mean, come on. It had pictures.
It was definitely a good read, but I wasn't there long enough to finish it, and I'm gonna have to buy myself a copy.
Because it's a book you can get through quickly, so that means that you were out of there quick. So that's a good sign.
Definitely.
But actually, BuzzFeed like a couple of years, about 5 years ago, kind of named it as one of the top 25 books for young people in recovery. Kind of because we were very honest with, and it wasn't just me telling the story. It was interviews with people we grew up with, people Chris acted with, on SNL and Hollywood. So it was just really everyone else's perspective on Chris. And what's great about that is they all saw the same thing we did as family did. So, so it's, yeah, I'm kind of proud of that. Yeah, what we
Definitely, definitely. And then with the Chris Farley Foundation, when did you start that, and what is that doing nowadays?
Yeah, I started right after Chris died. I had this urgent need to go into schools and really kind of tell Chris's story and hopefully prevent somebody else from, a fan, a teen, a young adult, from going down that same road. So I started just going in. It was interesting. I had no, experience doing that. So I went in with a woman who had been doing this, going into schools, and her son had died of a heroin overdose. And we would go into schools and she would start talking, and it was, crying and very emotional. And it was very, don't do what my son did. And, don't make those same mistakes. And it was just that kind of a message. And I'm sitting there next to her. I'm very Irish. So like we bury that emotion. Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to cry. But, and of course that's a mother. So, I mean, I'm just wasn't going to do that. And she was very effective and very good at what she did. But I said, I got to do something different. And I started noticing, I started going in myself, and I started, I would see the same thing every time. It was kind of interesting. I would walk into a health class at a high school, and I would see the jocks in the back corner, kind of fooling around and joking around before class. I'd see the kids over in this other corner, all dressed in black, coloring on themselves, and then the academics up front, ready to, take everything down like I was going to give them a test. And they'd say, this is Tom Farley, head of the Chris Farley Foundation, brother of Chris. And I would see every kid in the class just kind of go, like, stop and lean forward. I had their full attention. Teachers would come up to me and like, how did you do that? I can't even get like 30% attention. So I realized I had a real great opportunity to create a brand and create, a message, but I had to do it like Chris would have done. I had to use humor, even though it was a serious subject matter. I had to do it like Chris would have done. So I looked at all three of my brothers who were trained in improv through Second City, and I'm like, all right, I got to take a class in improv, and maybe that'll help me. And it did, because I learned that improv was a communication tool. It was
Definitely.
how to help kids, how to help groups of kids, ensembles, how to help them communicate better. And I thought, wow, we do so much work from like fifth grade DARE classes on up to health classes in high school, just giving them all this information about drugs and alcohol, but no tools to use that information. I'm like, okay, for me, communication is the tool. So I'm going to teach them how to communicate. I'm going to teach them how to create peer enhanced environments rather than peer pressured environments. And that's what I did. I went into schools, talked a little bit about Chris's journey, and I would start bringing them up and doing just improv. And it's like, you got to learn to communicate better. That's the only way you're going to get through this world, safe and healthy. And it was great. I did that for a long time. And then all over the country. And then in 2008, I wrote the book, and I started doing more kind of keynote speeches and, kind of motivational stuff. So I realized that that's kind of where this is going. So I kind of closed the foundation down in 2012, and I've been doing this ever since, just kind of going and speaking. And interesting thing happened along the way as I, got into recovery myself. So it really, over the last couple of years, just kind of came full circle. It's like, here I was talking about, my brother's, addiction and treatment and recovery and ultimately, death. And it's really easy to talk about somebody else's recovery. But when I added my own story to it, it became really authentic and real. And I connected with people much more than I did with just, throwing out Chris's, story and name. So the last couple of years has been really, rewarding for me as a person, because I can talk about my journey too.
Definitely, definitely, and that's awesome. even just hearing that makes me feel better about my journey, because that's exactly where I started and what I've been doing. I've been speaking at schools. I go back home and speak at the high schools back up there, and I'm reaching out to schools now, and so that lets me know that I'm on the right path.
Oh, you are. And you know what? You've got to honor that not everyone is a good speaker. Not everyone connects to an audience really well, especially with this kind of a topic. So people like you are definitely needed out there. And you got to use humor. You got to be, again, it's authentic, and I think you are reaching people. I mean, I just love, as I was just kind of going through your stuff, and just like your, just always something there to remind me with the pipe, with the glass and everything. I'm like, that's beautiful. I mean, you gotta, like, you saw something, you're like, I got to talk about this. And you created, a story around it, a program around it, and it works. And the more we do stuff like that, the more people realize that it's more common than we think. And we're step by step, we're reducing stigma, and we're pointing people in the right direction. So, God bless you for doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate all that. Well, I'm going to let you go, Tom. I want to thank you for sharing some of your message and some of your time with us tonight. Do you have anything else you want to leave these people with?
No, well, as I said, it's what I'm really excited about now is I've been talking a lot about, we're unfortunately probably going to see a kind of a spike. We already are in the need for treatment and recovery because of this COVID. As I said, it's a disease of isolation, and now we've been isolated on top of it. So it's been tough, I think, for a lot of people out there. But as I said, you put things off, or you don't see it. It's not like in your face. It's just kind of all of a sudden you realize it's there. Well, I think we're going to see that with a lot of people. It used to be like over a long period of time, it was like you get worse and worse and worse. I think over the last 3 months, people got worse a lot quicker, a lot faster. So
definitely.
But the good news is that there is so many more resources out there and opportunities to find that connection and find this community. And the stigma is going away. I mean, I've been doing the virtual AA meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and like, that's just, I do miss the I do miss the
In-person
the connection. I do miss it, but it's been, I can see for somebody, I remember the first time going into like a meeting, and they're like, all these strangers, and they're saying, like, share. I'm like, share? I don't know people. What do you mean share? So now you can do that online. It's you can do it at your own pace. You don't even have to put your face up there. I mean, it's going to reach a lot more people, I think. And the whole telehealth thing, there's some great resources out there. So it's changing for the better. I think more people are going to, it's easier to get into treatment and recovery. Not easier to pay for it, but it's certainly easier access.
Definitely.
Just just to even start the process from your home without having to find a babysitter and transportation, and like, you can at least have a conversation now, and that's a positive sign. That's a really good sign. I'm excited about that.
Definitely. All right, Tom. Well, I'm going to thank you again for being here, and I will let you get out of here, my friend.
Can I go to bed now?
Yes, you can go to bed. You can go back to your van down by the river.
Awesome. Man, it's been fun. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on, brother. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, brother.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Point of Change meets Tom Farley. What a good story. What an amazing guest. I want to thank Tom again for coming on here. And before I let you guys go, I want to give you just a quick message. I'm a 13-year meth addict. For 13 years, I did meth and every other drug I could get my hands on. I literally smoked meth until my teeth rotted while they were still in my skull. I've been in recovery since February 3rd, 2017, and in just 3+ years of recovery, I have made so much more further progress in my life than I did in 13 years of addiction. If you step away from those chains, you step away from those chains that are holding you back, guys. Tonight is one of those nights where I just feel super jaded. The fact that I just had Chris Farley's brother, Chris Farley, the guy who I used to watch in Tommy Boy and in Black Sheep and on Saturday Night Live when I was a kid, his brother just came on my program on Facebook. My program that I created 2 years ago just had Chris Farley's brother on it. So I'm having one of those moments where anything is possible. And I want you guys to know that whatever you want in this world, go after it. Go after it and do it. Take the leap, make the change, and live your dream, man. Because I'm telling you, there ain't nothing more rewarding than following your passions and living your dreams, guys. I love you all so much. Thank you guys for all of your support. If this video hits you in the heart, if you know somebody who wants to see this, please hit that share button and send this out somewhere in any addiction groups you may be a part of, onto your own page. Somebody needs to see this. I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay clean.